The topic for this year's seminars is Searchbaits for Success. And I'll explain to you what I mean by Searchbaits. Look, what I'm holding up right now, this is a spinner. How many of you use spinners? I use spinners all the time. As a matter of fact, they're one of the oldest lures. They probably go back about 70 years. So a lot of people don't use inline spinners anymore because there's spinner baits and all kinds of other lures on the market, soft plastic and hard plastic. This is a Vibrex number 4, and it's a little bit different than other spinners because it has a bell and a gear inside. So when the water goes through it, that bell and gear rattle and shake and make a lot of noise. The advantage of using a spinner is that you can cover a lot of water. So in fact, this is an old school search bait. So I'm just going to demonstrate it. If I want to fish right along the surface, let's say I'm in shallow water, or there's weeds growing right up to the surface, I can retrieve it quickly, and I can fish it just below the surface. If I want to fish down, and let's use our imagination, and say that this tank is 20 feet deep, and I don't know if the fish are suspended or near the bottom, just by pausing 2 or 3 seconds, I can let that spinner go down in the mid part of the water column. So let's say now it's about 10 feet down. You saw that I got some interest there. I saw the follows. If I want to fish it right along the bottom, even in 20, 30 feet of water, I let it sink deep, and I do something called slow rolling, where I retrieve it very slowly, and it's going near the bottom. Do you know how hard it is for me not to hook those fish? I can see what's going on. They're going for that spinner. So what I mean by search bait is a lure that you can fish in different depths of the water column, pretty well in open water or above weeds. They're not weedless lures, but they're lures that you can use to cover water to tell you if the fish are there or not. Now, there are companies that have come out with modern search baits. This is called an Arashi Spin. It's a very unique lure. By the way, when I'm done, in about 25 minutes, you can come down and look at the lures. I can even pass the rods around. You can't keep them, but you can look at them. This lure is about 4 inches long. It has a double propeller at the back that spins really nicely, and a triple propeller at the front. It really has no lip. It doesn't do a side-to-side wobble. It just swims straight. The whole idea is that you cast this out far. It's weighted. When it sinks, it actually shimmies like this from side to side. You'll see the action in a minute. Those blades are very specific because they cause a turbulence. It's called underwater turbulence, like a propeller that causes that stream when you're running along in your boat. Fish detect that turbulence, they come up to it, and a lot of times they hit it. So it's a perfect search bait. So watch when I demonstrate it, the way it comes through the water. It'll run very horizontally. There's no side-to-side action unless I pause it. So the first cast, I'm going to let it sink a bit and retrieve it. I know those propellers are small, but I hope you can see them. I've done underwater footage, all from different angles, and you can actually see the turbulence. You know, in the summertime, you see the heat coming off the pavement? You can actually see the water turbulence coming off those propellers. This time, I'm going to cast it out halfway back to me. I'm going to let it shimmy. I'm going to retrieve it, try not to get it in front. See the way it's shimming side to side when it's falling? I'll do that again. A lot of times, the fish will whack it when it's falling and shimming, even though they followed it. There it goes again. You can see that shimmy from side to side. So this is really not a lure that represents food or a lure to make fish strike. And I'm going to explain that in a moment. It's a search bait that you can cover a lot of water and fish suspended in the water column from the surface to the bottom or wherever the first obstructions are, like weeds or stumps and so on. Once you get a fish, you might want to keep casting it like a buzz bait, see if you can get some more. But if not, you switch to the other lures. Then your challenge is to figure out whether they're feeding or not. And you can catch them if they're feeding, if you're using the right lure. But if they're not feeding, you can also make them strike. That lure, by the way, is made from Storm, and it's called an Arashi Spin. The next search bait, and this is a search bait, you'll see a display right at the front there. This is made by Storm. It's called a GT360 search bait, and it's made out of soft plastic. It has an acrylic head with eyes. It sinks. It has a paddle tail, a very slender body. So this isn't really a jigging lure. It's not a crankbait. It's a search bait. What I like about this particular type of lure is that it has pre-cut holes in it. You know, sometimes when you put a plastic twister on or a shad, you don't know exactly where to hook it or where the hooks will come out. This is very simple because when you have to change the body after fish have torn it up, there's a hole in the front where you insert the hook and a hole at the top where the hook comes out. Now watch the action. This is the same thing as the Arashi Spin, but it doesn't use the turmoil. This uses that flapping side to side to send vibrations out both sides. The fish pick up on their ladder line. So I'm going to cast it out, let it sink just a little bit, because I can fish it at any depth. And you can see that really nice horizontal swimming action and that nice paddle tail going from side to side. The reason this lure has that nice horizontal action is because the eye is slightly offset forward. It's not perpendicular and it's not angled at the front. Otherwise the lure would fall down like this when you're retrieving it. That's what it would look like. So it comes through the water horizontally. Again, even though it's got an acrylic head, you can cast it out quite a distance and you can cover a lot of water. You can fish it slow, or you can do something called burning it in, ripping it in quick. A lot of times when you speed up your presentation, fish that aren't feeding will actually get excited when they see something moving fast, and they don't have time to come up to it and sniff it. They just nail it out of aggression or protection or imprinting. So this is going to be a very popular lure this year. It's called a Storm GT 360 search bait. So you might want to look at them at the show. Let's say you found the fish. The challenge is figuring out whether they feed or whether you have to make them strike. Now you're probably saying, well, what's the difference? Well, I don't see anybody feeding right now in the audience. Somebody had a pizza for breakfast, it looked really good. People like fish don't eat all the time. We eat when we wake up. Now fish don't sleep, but they do rest. And they do very little feeding at night unless they're a walleye or a catfish. So when it gets light, early in the morning, we all know the early bird gets the worm. It's pretty easy to catch fish, whether you're trolling with worms in a harness or using minnows or live bait, or using artificials that look like the food they're feeding on. But usually when you get into the 10 o'clock, into noon, 2, 3, it's 80 degrees out, flat water, nice sunny day, the fish stop biting, right? I meet a lot of people at 10 a.m. that are coming off the lake, and I'm just getting there. And I say, how's the fishing? And they show me a stringer. They got a couple of fish on. They go out, they stop biting. We're going back to the cottage. They're not using the right terminology. They stop catching them, and the fish stop feeding. But if you know how to change your presentation, you can still make fish strike. So let me talk a little bit about a feeding presentation. You found the fish. You've used your electronics. You looked at your eyes, saw the structure on top, weed beds. You used the search baits. You caught a few fish. Now you got to figure out what they're feeding or whether you make them strike. To find out if they're feeding, I would use a lure that looks like the food that they're feeding on. That means natural colors. This is a perch color. This particular lure is one of my favorite. It's called the Rapala Husky Jerk. But this isn't the twitch bait. This is the Husky Jerk that's part of the scatter series. So it has the oval lip. So when you pull it, you don't have to twitch it. It automatically scatters from side to side. It swims very naturally. So watch when I demonstrate it. So if I was in a spot and I believe the fish were feeding, let's say I see some surface commotion, I see fish that are exploding, or I see bait fish flying out of the water, or I see birds, gulls and stuff picking up bait fish, chances are there's fish feeding underneath. So I'm casting out that Husky Jerk. You can see how tight the action is and how natural the wobble is. That was a slow retrieve to show you that nice side-to-side action. Watch if I retrieve it a little bit quicker. You're going to see it scatter. So there, as soon as I retrieve it quicker, it goes straight and then it starts scattering from side to side without me twitching the rod. So the scatter wrap Husky Jerk in the natural colors would be a feeding presentation. Look, you're here at the show. I don't know how you decide what lures to buy. I bought some soft plastics yesterday because they looked really good. You know, and I know exactly what I'm going to use them for. They were a little imitation of dragonfly nips for steelheading. So that's a feeding presentation for steelhead because they remember when they were little and they had to feed on those little organisms. And when they come back in the stream and they're 10 pounds, they may not hit a row bag or a lure or a worm, but they see that little nip come by, they'll probably nip at it and grab it. So remember the rule that when fish are feeding, you want to use a natural presentation. That means natural swimming, natural looking, which means natural colors, no rattles. You want it to be natural. Nothing rattles underwater. That lure that I showed you, the Husky Jerk in the scatter series, is to be fished at different depths. You can troll with it, cast with it. Now I'm going to show you a lure that's a feeding presentation that's designed to be fished on the bottom. Where do walleyes like to feed? Down, near the bottom. They'll suspend in the Great Lakes and bigger lakes where they feed on larger baitfish in open water, but for the most part, in our inland lakes and northern lakes, they feed near the bottom. Using a very simple jig and a minnow grub, this is a Lunker City finesse fish. It's 4.5 inches long and it has a finesse fish head. Looks more realistic than a live minnow. A live minnow, if it's healthy and you hook it through the lips, it'll swim naturally. It won't act erratic unless you pull it. Once it gets hurt a little bit from recasting, or maybe a fish hitting it, it'll kind of swim sideways or it'll stop swimming. What I like about using this particular lure for a feeding presentation is that I can manipulate it so that it looks just like or better than a real bait fish. Watch, I'm going to let it go to the bottom, and I'm just going to give it a couple of snaps to the rod. Tell me if that doesn't look real, like a fish that's kind of trying to swim. I've got bubbles, so I can't see fish going for it. Are there any fish going for it? A little excited, even though these are rainbows in captivity. I'm going to toss it out again and swim it from a distance. So if I was fishing walleye or bass or pike that are closer to the bottom, and I think they're feeding on bait fish, I would go to a natural presentation. So that lure is natural color, silver with a black back. It doesn't have an action tail, but it looks like a real fish. You know, the funny thing is, this lure has no scent on it. Big talk. We had questions yesterday, you know, does the scent work? Should we use scents? And I tell people, look, if the lure has a great action, and you fool a few of the senses, the fish doesn't have to come up and sniff it and taste it. It's sold. It's going to hit it. Okay? So this is one of the oldest lures. I introduced this to Canada about 32 years ago. And they're still catching lots of fish in the Detroit River, and the fishing is starting there right now for walleye. This is the #1 plastic bait fish that represents minnows that the walleye feed on in the river, even down 30, 40 feet. Now, what happens when the fish aren't feeding? Let's say you're using your live bait, you're using the lures that look natural colored, natural swimming action, no vibrations or no rattles, and you're not getting any hits. And all the guys that you see fishing and they're using live bait aren't getting any hits. That's the time to use lures to make fish strike. Well, what kind of lures am I talking about? I'm talking about lures that are unnatural color. This is, it's called a Shad Dancer. One of my favorite lures for walleye is a Tail Dancer made by Rapala. This is a Shad Dancer. It's only smaller, 3 inches long, has the same kind of lick and side-to-side action, very erratic. It's chartreuse. This is like fluorescent green-yellow, and it has like fluorescent green on top and orange on the bottom. There is nothing in the water that looks like this, no food. The action when you're casting and retrieving is constantly erratic. It's not like a fish that can't swim well. It's like totally not natural underwater. And it also has rattles, okay? So the clanging of the split ring with the hooks and so on. So watch this action when it's going through the water. So when it's the middle of the day, fish aren't feeding anymore, that's when you pull out your lures that have the loud rattles, that are the bright chartreuse colors. You can see that wide side-to-side action, not like that Husky Jerk scatter wrap. There are times that if you fish this when fish are feeding, it'll actually scare the fish. Does anybody have those rattling lures that sound like baby rattles? Rattle trap, rattling wrap from Rapala. You know, if you're in a tin boat, you can feel the vibrations. And you can hear it 10 feet away from the boat. What food does the underwater? None. If you use that when fish are feeding, they're going to get out of dodge. If you throw it in the middle of the day, reel it fast so it makes lots of noise, there are bass and other fish, walleye and pike, that just nail it because they're striking it, they're not feeding. So I'll demonstrate the Shad Dancer one more time, and then we're going to do a quick review. So this lure is designed to be constantly cranked at different speeds. It'll run true like all Rapalas, whether you troll faster or you retrieve it slower. I'm going to do a quick review, and then I'm going to come down.